Before we
Welcome to
go
Hot
any
Drama
further,
TV.
have you ever looked at someone on screen and thought, he doesn't feel like a celebrity, he feels like a character I already know? If you've ever felt that way about Liu Yuning, leave a red heart in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only one. Liu Yuning, the romantic novel hero who quietly walked into reality. There is a moment every romance reader knows too well. A moment when you close the book, stare at the ceiling and think, men like this don't exist in real life. They are too gentle, too loyal, too emotionally present. They suffer quietly, love deeply, and always arrive when it matters most. They belong to fiction. And yet, somewhere between a dimly lit street corner and a glowing television screen, Liu Yuning appeared. Not loudly, not suddenly, but unmistakably. A voice before a face. Before people learned his name. Before they noticed his height. Before his eyes became a topic of discussion. There was his voice. A voice that sounded like it had lived a life. Low, steady, slightly worn. As if it carried both hope and heartbreak at the same time. When Liu Yuning sang, it didn't feel like performance. Felt like confession. People stopped scrolling. They slowed down. They listened. And without realizing it, they were already inside his story. Not born a hero but becoming one. Romance novels often begin with powerful male leads. Nobles, generals, CEOs, men born into destiny. Liu Yuning's story begins somewhere else entirely. No spotlight. No privilege. Just persistence. Street performances. Small stages. Moments where talent existed long before opportunity did. And this is where reality quietly improves upon fiction. Because a man who knows what it means to struggle, understands patience, understands humility, understands how to stay gentle in a world that isn't. That depth. You can't act it. You can't fake it. You either have it or you don't. The face that tells a story. When Liu Yuning finally appeared on screen, audiences noticed something unusual. He didn't look like a perfectly polished idol. He looked like a character. His eyes didn't demand attention. They invited curiosity. There was restraint in his expressions. Silence that felt intentional. A sense that he was always holding something back. And that's when the comparison began. He looks like he stepped out of a romance novel. Not because he was flawless, but because he felt written. A different kind of male lead. Liu Yuning does not dominate the screen by force. He doesn't overwhelm. Instead, he waits. His characters endure. They protect quietly. They choose loyalty over spectacle. This is the kind of male lead modern audiences crave. Not the loud hero, but the reliable one. The man who stands behind you when the world turns cold. The one who doesn't promise the universe, but stays long enough to build it with you. Why audiences can't look away. The reason Liu Yuning feels like a romantic novel hero isn't just appearance, voice, or talent. It's emotional credibility. When he sings, it feels personal. When he acts, it feels restrained. When he speaks, it feels sincere. There is no sense of artificial perfection. Only the feeling that this is someone who understands emotion and respects it. And that makes the fantasy believable. When fiction and reality blur. In today's entertainment world, audiences don't just watch stories. They want to feel them. Liu Yuning exists at a rare intersection, where storytelling, vulnerability, and reality overlap. He is not selling an illusion. He is embodying one that feels earned. And perhaps that is why people say, a romantic novel hero has come to life. Not because such heroes are perfect, but because they make us believe, just for a moment, that depth, patience, and quiet devotion still exist. The ending that isn't an ending. Romance novels always end with certainty. Reality does not. And Liu Yuning's story is still unfolding. But maybe that's the most compelling part. Because unlike fiction, this hero does not belong to the final chapter. He is still walking forward. One song, one role, one moment at a time. And audiences, knowingly or not, are walking with him. There is something strangely powerful about a man who never tries to convince you he is special. Liu Yuning never walked onto the stage saying, "Look at me." Instead, he stood there and let time decide. And time did. Silence as a language. In many of his performances, what stays with the audience is not what he says, but what he doesn't. A pause before speaking. A glance held half a second longer than necessary. A breath taken quietly, as if afraid to disturb the moment. These silences feel intentional. They feel lived in. Like someone who has learned that emotions do not need to be loud to be real. This is why audiences trust him. Because trust is born from restraint. The masculinity that feels safe. Romance fiction has changed. Gone are the days when dominance alone defined attraction. Today's ideal male lead is emotionally intelligent, capable of vulnerability, and strong enough to remain kind. Liu Yuning fits into this shift effortlessly. His masculinity does not intimidate. It reassures. He feels like someone who would listen before speaking and stay instead of walking away. For many viewers, especially women, this kind of presence is not just attractive, it is comforting. Why his imperfection matters. What makes Liu Yuning believable as a romantic novel hero is not perfection, it is texture, a hint of weariness in his voice, a seriousness shaped by experience, a humility that refuses to disappear even as fame grows. He does not feel manufactured. He feels accumulated, like someone who became who he is, layer by layer, mistake by mistake. And audiences recognize that truth instinctively, the illusion that feels honest. Here is the paradox. Liu Yuning represents fantasy, yet nothing about him feels false. He doesn't sell an unreachable dream. He offers a possible one. The kind where love is quiet, where strength is patient, where devotion is shown through consistency, not grand gestures. That is why viewers don't just admire him. They project stories onto him. And once that happens, a performer becomes something more. A mirror, not just a star. At his core, Liu Yuning functions as a mirror. People see in him the lover they imagined, the friend they wished for, the partner they hope exists somewhere. This is not accidental. It is the result of emotional transparency. He does not shield himself behind excessive polish. He allows a certain openness to remain visible. An openness invites attachment. The cost of being believable. But there is also a quiet burden in being this relatable. When audiences see you as a character, they forget you are human. Liu Yuning walks a delicate line between being admired and being imagined, yet somehow he maintains balance. By staying grounded, by speaking honestly, by letting his work speak louder than his image. This restraint protects both him and the story people want to believe in. A hero still being written. Romance novels end with certainty. Life does not. And perhaps that is what makes Liu Yuning so compelling. He is not the finished character. He is the ongoing chapter. Still growing. Still learning. Still surprising. And as long as his journey continues, audiences will keep watching. Not because they expect perfection, but because they sense authenticity. Why this story matters. In a world oversaturated with spectacle, Liu Yuning represents something rare. A reminder that gentleness can be powerful. That consistency can be attractive. That emotional depth still holds value. He is not shouting to be seen. And somehow, that makes people listen even harder. And so the story continues. Maybe Liu Yuning did step out of a romantic novel. Or maybe romance novels simply learned how to write men like him. Either way, his story isn't meant to be rushed. And it certainly isn't over. And neither is the audience's fascination.